All right, so welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going deep on the Deer Woman.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, and we've got a pretty interesting mix of sources, actually. We've got uh, a blog post. This one's from Gone God World.
Okay.
We've got a student newspaper article from Haskell Indian Nations University.
Wow.
And we even have a little snippet from a book.
Nice.
So it seems like we're going to be getting like all different kinds of perspectives on this.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's what makes her so interesting, right? It's like this one figure,
Right.
but she can be a shapeshifter, a temptress, a protector, a symbol.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really gets you thinking about the cultures that created these stories.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, let's get into it. Who exactly is the Deer Woman?
Well, the blog post that we have describes her as a shapeshifter, of course.
Right.
Sometimes she's young, sometimes she's old, but always with hooves.
Hooves, gotta have the hooves.
Always got to have those hooves, yeah. And sometimes she's, a full deer.
Other times, she's like half woman, half deer.
Yeah.
That half and half imagery is really common.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it's interesting, like, the author of the blog,
Yeah.
he makes a joke about how you never see deer-headed women
Really?
with human bodies, right? Like, it's
No.
always the leg.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if, like, even in mythology, there are, like, unspoken rules about shape-shifting.
Right, like how it's supposed to work.
Exactly.
That's so interesting. But then we had this student newspaper article from Haskell University.
Okay.
And in that one, the Deer Woman is much more like just straight up monstrous.
It does seem like over time, especially in like modern stories,
Yeah.
she's become this more menacing figure.
Right.
Like in the blog post, they even mentioned how like in modern horror,
Whoa.
she's often shown as this killer, like stomping men to death.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Pretty different from like this mystical shapeshifter.
Yeah, for sure.
Although even in some of the older stories, she's not always like benevolent.
Right.
So the book that we have actually links her to Native American traditions,
Okay.
where she is seen as like a punisher.
Interesting.
She punishes those who break cultural taboos,
Oh, wow.
especially those against women.
Okay, that definitely adds like another layer to her.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got this temptress who lures men to their deaths, but she's also this protector of women.
Yeah.
And she upholds these societal norms. Like it's like she embodies this contradiction. Like it's desire and punishment
Totally.
all wrapped up in one.
It is, and it's interesting to see how each of these sources portrays that.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
the blog really focuses on that modern killer image.
Yeah.
But it also mentions like the idea of men wasting away in her presence, which
Yeah.
is like almost more nuanced
Right.
than just like straight up murder.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that also ties back to like the temptation idea.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not just brute force.
Yeah.
There's like allure and manipulation at play.
Definitely.
And then, the student newspaper focuses on her as like a predator.
Yeah.
But it also brings up this possibility that maybe she's just seeking like human connection.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah. So maybe she's not always out for blood.
Yeah.
Maybe she's like lonely
Yeah.
or misunderstood.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, she's powerful,
She is powerful.
but is she inherently evil?
Right. It really makes you wonder.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the book excerpt gets really interesting because it positions her as this force of retribution.
Right.
Like it's not just random killings.
Right.
It's about like justice,
Yeah.
righting wrongs,
Yeah.
and specifically wrongs that have been committed against women.
So if she is punishing like societal transgressions, then what does that say about the men she targets? Are they just victims of like a vengeful spirit? Or do they do something to like deserve her wrath?
That is a great question.
This is definitely not like a clear-cut good versus evil situation.
No, not at all. And I think that's what makes the Deer Woman so fascinating, right? Like she really forces us to confront these maybe uncomfortable questions about temptation, desire, and the consequences of our actions.
Wow, absolutely. Speaking of confronting things, the student newspaper from Haskell University, they include some alleged Deer Woman sightings
What?
on campus.
No way.
Yeah.
Really? On campus?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that brings it to life in a whole new way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, suddenly it's not just a story. It's
Right.
like, oh, wait.
Right.
Could this be real?
Yeah, and they include two different accounts.
Okay.
One involves a security guard who's doing his rounds.
Okay.
Finds hoof prints in the snow.
Oh, spooky.
Yeah, and even like feels this unsettling chill.
Okay, now that's scary.
And then there's the story of the deer woman jumping from the stadium.
The stadium.
During a football game.
What?
In front of everyone.
No way! Hold on, can we talk about that football game for a sec? A stadium full of people.
Yeah.
And this figure, this, possible deer woman, just leaps out.
Yeah.
I mean, that just sends chills down my spine.
I know, right? So what stands out to you about these stories?
I think, honestly, it's the ambiguity.
Yeah.
Was she looking for victims?
Right.
Or was she drawn to, all those people?
Right.
I mean, these stories raise more questions than answers.
Right. And that ambiguity plays right into that whole dual nature thing.
Oh, totally.
Right. Like, is she a protector, just observing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is there something more sinister going on? I'm hooked. Let's keep going.
Okay, yeah. I mean, those sightings at Haskell really tap into that fear of the unknown,
Right.
That, primal instinct we have to, be wary of what's lurking in the shadows.
Totally. But, okay. Let's shift gears a little bit and dive into something the big excerpt really emphasized.
Okay.
Which is this deeper meaning of the deer woman.
Right.
So it connects her to ideas of fertility and love.
Okay.
But also the dangers of unchecked male desire.
It's almost like a cautionary tale, right? Woven into the fabric of these cultures.
Right, yeah.
Like warning against giving in to temptation.
Yeah.
Without thinking about the consequences.
Yeah, and there's that crucial detail that the book brought up.
Yeah.
Which is that recognizing her true nature, those hooves, right, is key to avoiding harm.
It's like almost like a red flag, right?
Right.
Like those hooves, you see them, back away.
Yeah, and it's not just about avoiding a creature in the woods, right? It's about being aware of those dangers hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah, yeah.
In all aspects of life. Exactly.
Like seeing those hooves is like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
To be more discerning.
Yes.
To think critically about the choices we make.
Exactly. Recognize those red flags, those warning signs.
Yeah.
Before it's too late.
Right.
And we can't forget that idea of ignoring the power of women. Yeah. Being a man's downfall, right?
Right.
The dear woman, in many ways, she embodies feminine strength.
Right.
And the consequences of disrespecting it.
Right.
Or underestimating it.
Well, yeah, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
No doubt. But we've been talking a lot about her connection to men.
Right.
What about her role as a protector of women?
Well, that's where the idea of cultural taboos really comes in.
Right.
The book explained how the dear woman punishes those who violate these societal norms.
Yeah.
Often, the ones that harm or disrespect women.
She's not just a vengeful spirit.
Right.
She's an enforcer of societal values.
Right. So she represents a kind of moral balance.
Yeah, you can say that.
Right. So if men step out of line,
yeah,
if they disrespect women or break those societal rules,
yeah,
she's there to set things right.
Exactly.
It's like she embodies the consequences of those actions.
Exactly. And the severity of her punishment often mirrors the severity of the transgression.
Right.
It's about maintaining harmony, upholding a certain moral code.
But doesn't that make her role even more contradictory?
How so?
Well, we're talking about a figure associated with love and fertility.
Yeah.
Yet she's also capable of brutal punishment.
Okay.
So how do we reconcile those two sides?
Well, I think that's where cultural context really comes in.
Okay.
The dear woman isn't just a singular entity. Right. She represents this complex tapestry of beliefs and values.
Right.
Remember the book mentioned her presence in Native American cultures, from the eastern woodlands to the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, it seems like her story transcends those specific tribal boundaries.
Right. It does.
It speaks to something universal.
Yeah.
Something deeply ingrained in like the human experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding.
Right.
We're not just like scratching the surface of a myth.
Yeah.
We're uncovering layers of cultural, symbolic, and even like psychological insight.
Okay. Before we go like too far down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
I got to bring up something that's been bugging me.
Okay.
So we talked about her dual nature, right?
Yeah.
This whole temptress versus protector thing.
Right.
But does it have to be one or the other?
Hmm.
Could those roles coexist within the same being?
That's a great question. And I think it really challenges the binary way we often view these kinds of figures.
Right.
Maybe it's not about choosing a side, right? Maybe it's about recognizing that both like the alluring and the fearsome can exist within the same being.
Right.
And maybe that reflects the complexities of life itself.
Right. And maybe that's what makes her so enduring.
Yeah.
So captivating. She defies like easy categorization.
She does.
She's like a mirror reflecting our own desires.
Yeah.
Our fears.
Yeah.
And that constant struggle.
Yeah.
Between like light and shadow within ourselves.
Ooh, I like that.
I think this might be a good time to circle back to something we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
The deer woman sightings.
Right? Yeah.
They sort of some Haskell. You know, they bring up this question that's been like kind of lingering in my mind.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to make of these encounters?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Hoofprints in the snow.
Yeah.
Leaping from a stadium. You know, is it possible there's something more to this?
Right. I mean, I think that's a question that each listener really has to kind of wrestle with, on their own. Like, for some people, it might be easy to just like dismiss these accounts as like tall tales or, misinterpretations, whatever.
Yes.
But for others, it might like spark that sense of wonder,
right.
A feeling that like there are forces at play that we don't fully understand.
I get that. It's not about like proving or disproving her literal existence, right?
Right.
It's more about acknowledging the power these stories hold, right?
Yeah.
Like whether she's a physical being or a symbolic representation, she taps into something deep within us.
Oh, totally.
Something that resonates on this like primal level.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us back to that idea of her being a reflection of ourselves. She embodies our desires, our fears, the consequences of our actions.
Right.
But she also represents something larger, something that like connects us to the natural world and the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding.
Right. And if we take that a step further, we have to consider the cultural context.
Right.
Exactly. The book we were talking about mentioned that that she often serves as this enforcer of societal norms.
Yeah.
Punishing those who violate cultural taboos.
Right.
So if we entertain the possibility, right, of her existence, even for a moment, what might her presence say about the state of our own society?
That's a really thought-provoking question. I mean, if we look at the world around us, right? Yeah. Are there taboos being broken?
Right.
Are there injustices going unpunished?
Yeah.
Are we as a society like straying from a path of balance and respect?
Right. It's almost as if the deer woman, whether real or imagined, is like holding up a mirror to our own behavior. Yeah. Forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves,
right,
and the world we've created.
Yeah, and maybe that's the most powerful lesson we can take from this deep dive.
Yeah.
Like myths and legends, they're not just entertaining stories.
Right.
They're reflections of our deepest anxieties, our hopes, our values. Yeah. And sometimes they challenge us to look inward. Right. And examine our own place in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to end on. The deer woman, this figure of mystery, power, and enduring fascination.
Oh, for sure.
She reminds us that there's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to question, even in the stories we think we know. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.